Chapter 6. About that time King Antiochus, traveling through the high countries, heard say that Eri'Moshe in the country of Persia was a city greatly renowned for riches, silver, and gold, and that there was in it a very rich temple, wherein were coverings of gold, and breastplates, and shields, which Alexander, son of Philip, the Macedonian king, who reigned first among the Yavanim, had left there. Wherefore he came and sought to take the city and to spoil it. But he was not able, because they of the city, having a warning thereof, rose up against him in battle. So he fled and departed thence with great heaviness, and returned to Babel. Moreover, there came one who brought him tidings into Persia, that the armies which went against the land of Yehuda were put to flight, and that Lysias, who went forth first as a great power, was driven away of the Yahudim, and that they were made strong by the armor, and power, and store of spoils, which they had gotten of the armies, whom they destroyed. Also that they had pulled down the abomination, which he had set up upon the altar in Jerusalem, and that they had compassed about the sanctuary with high walls, as before, in his city Beit Sur. Now when the king heard these things, he was astonished, and sore moved, whereupon he laid him down upon his bed, and fell sick for grief, because it had not befallen him as he looked for. And there he continued many days, for his grief was ever more and more, and he made account that he should die. Wherefore he called for all his friends, and said unto them, The sleep is gone from my eyes, and my heart fails for every care. And I thought with myself, Into what tribulation am I come, and how great a flood of misery is it, wherein now I am, for I was bountiful and beloved in my power. But now I remember the evils that I did at Jerusalem, and that I took all the vessels of gold and silver that were therein, and sent to destroy the inhabitants of Yehuda without a cause. I perceive therefore this cause these troubles are come upon me, and behold, I perish through great grief in a strange land. Then he called for Philip, one of his friends, who he made ruler over all his realm, and gave him the crown, and his robe, and his signet, to the end he should bring up his son Antiochus, and nourish him up for the kingdom. So King Antiochus died there in the 149th year. Now when Lysias knew that the king was dead, he set up Antiochus his son, whom he had brought up being young, to reign in his stead, and his name was called Eupator. About this time they that were in the tower shut up Yasharel round about the sanctuary, and sought always their hurt, and the strengthening of the heathen. Wherefore Yehuda, purposing to destroy them, called all the people together to besiege them. So they came together, and besieged them in the 150th year, and he made mounts for shot against them, and other engines. Howbeit certain of them that besieged got forth, unto whom some wicked men of Yasharel joined themselves. And they went unto the king, and said, How long will it be ere you execute judgment, and avenge our brethren? We have been willing to serve your father, and to do as he would have us, and to obey his commandments, for which cause they of our nation besieged the tower, and are alienated from us. Moreover, as many of us as they could, light on they slew, and spoiled our inheritance. Neither have they stretched out their hand against us only, but also against their borders. And behold, this day they are besieging the tower at Jerusalem to take it. The sanctuary also at Beit Sur have they fortified. Wherefore if you do not prevent them quickly, they will do greater things than these, neither shall you be able to rule them. Now when the king heard this, he was angry, and gathered together all his friends, and the captains of his army, and those that had charge of the horse. They came also unto him from other kingdoms, and from isles of the sea, bands of hired soldiers. So that the number of his army was 100,000 footmen, and 20,000 horse, and 32 elephants exercised in battle. These went through Edom, and pitched against Beit Sur, which they assaulted many days, making engines of war. But they of Beit Sur came out, and burned them with fire, and fought valiantly. Upon this Yehuda removed from the tower, and pitched in Beit Zacharyahu over against the king's camp. Then the king, rising very early, marched fiercely with his host toward Beit Zacharyahu, where his armies made them ready to battle, and sounded the shofars. And to the end they might provoke the elephants to fight, they showed them the blood of grapes and mulberries. Moreover, they divided the beast among their armies, and for every elephant they appointed 1,000 men, armed with coats of mail, and helmets of brass on their heads. And besides this, for every beast were ordained 500 horsemen of the best. These were ready at every occasion. Wheresoever the beast was, and whithersoever the beast went, they went also, neither departed from they him. And upon the beasts were they strong towers of wood, which covered every one of them, and were girt fast unto them with devices. There were also upon every one 32 strong men that fought upon them, beside the Indian that ruled him. As for the remnant of the horsemen, they set them on this side and on that side, and the two parts of the host, giving them signs what to do, and being harnessed all over amidst the ranks. Now when the sun shone above the shields of gold and brass, the mountains glistered therewith, and shined like lamps of fire. So part of the king's army being spread upon the high mountains, and part on the valleys below, they marched on safely and in order. Wherefore all that heard the noise of their multitude, and the marching of the company, and the rattling of the harness, were moved, for the army was great and mighty. Then Yehuda and his host drew near, and entered into battle, and there were slain of the king's army 600 men. Eleazar also, surnamed Savaran, perceiving that one of the beasts, armed with royal harness, was higher than all the rest, and supposing that the king was upon him, put himself in jeopardy, to the end he might deliver his people and get him a perpetual name. Wherefore he ran upon him courageously through the midst of the battle, slaying on the right hand and on the left, so that they were divided from him on both sides. Which done, he crept under the elephant and thrust him under, and slew him, whereupon the elephant fell down upon him, and there he died. Howbeit the rest of the Yahudim, seeing the strength of the king and the violence of his forces, turned away from them. Then the king's army went up to Jerusalem to meet, and the king pitched his tents against Yehuda and against Mount Sion. But with them that were in Beit Sur he made peace, for they came out of the city, because they had no victuals there to endure the siege, it being a year of the rest of the land. So the king took Beit Sur, and set a garrison there to keep it. As for the sanctuary, he besieged it many days, and set there artillery with engines and instruments to catch fire and stone, and pieces to cast spears and slings. Whereupon they also made engines against their engines, and held them battle a long season. Yet at their last, their vessels being without victuals, for that it was the 7th year, and they in Yehuda that were delivered from the other nations had eaten up the remnant of the store. There were but a few left in the sanctuary, because the famine did so prevail against them that they were fain to disperse themselves every man to his own place. At that time Lysias heard say that Philip, whom Antiochus the king, while he lived, had appointed to bring up his son Antiochus, that he might be king, was returned out of Persia and Madai, and the king's host also that went with him, and that he sought to take unto him the ruling of the affairs. Wherefore he went in all haste, and said to the king and the captains of the host and the company, We decay daily, and our victuals are but small, and the place we lay siege unto is strong, and the affairs of the kingdom lie upon us. Now therefore let us be friends with these men, and make peace with them, and with all their nation, and covenant with them, that they shall live after their Torah, as they did before. For they are therefore displeased, and have done all these things, because we abolished their Torah. So the king and the princes were content. Wherefore he sent unto them to make peace, and they accepted thereof. Also the king and the princes made an oath unto them, whereupon they went out of the stronghold. Then the king entered into Mount Sion, but when he saw the strength of the place, he broke his oath that he had made, and gave commandment to pull down the wall round about. Afterward departed he in all haste, and returned unto Antioch, where he found Philip to be master of the city. So he fought against him, and took the city by force. Makkabiym Ri'Shon, chapter 7. In the 150th year, Demetrius the son of Seleucus departed from Rome, and came up with a few men unto a city of the sea coast, and reigned there. And as he entered into the palace of his ancestors, so it was, that his forces had taken Antiochus and Lysias to bring them unto him. Wherefore, when he knew it, he said, Let me not see their faces. So his host slew them. Now when Demetrius was set upon the throne of his kingdom, there came unto him all the wicked and unrighteous men of Yasharel, having Alcimus, who was desirous to be high priest for their captain. And they accused the people to the king, saying, Yehuda and his brethren have slain all your friends, and driven us out of our own land. Now therefore send some man whom you trust, and let him go see what havoc he has made among us, and in the king's land, and let him punish them with all them that aid them. Then the king chose Maccabees, a friend of the king, who ruled beyond the flood, and was a great man in the kingdom, and faithful to the king. And him he sent with that wicked Alcimus, whom he made high priest, and commanded that he should take vengeance of the children of Yasharel. So they departed, and came with a great power into the land of Yehuda, where they sent messengers to Yehuda and his brethren with peaceable words deceitfully. But they gave no heed to their words, for they saw that they were come with a great power. Then did there assemble unto Alcimus Maccabees, a company of scribes, to require justice. Now the Hasadeans were the first among the children of Yasharel that sought peace of them. For said they, One that is a priest of the seed of Aharon is come with this army, and he will do us no wrong. So he spoke unto them peaceably, and swore unto them, saying, We will procure the harm neither of you nor your friends. Whereupon they believed him. Howbeit he took of them 60 men, and slew them in one day, according to the words which he wrote. The flesh of your Kodeshim have they cast out, and their blood have they shed round about Jerusalem, and there was none to bury them. Wherefore the fear and dread of them fell upon all the people, who said, There is neither truth nor righteousness in them, for they have broken the covenant and oath they made. After this removed Maccabees from Jerusalem, and pitched his tents in Bezeth, where he sent and took many of the men that had forsaken him, and certain of the people also. And when he had slain them, he cast them into the great pit. Then committed he the country to Alcimus, and left him with a power to aid him. So Maccabees went to the king. But Alcimus contended for the high priesthood, and unto him resorted all such as troubled the people, who after they had gotten the land of Yehud into their power did much hurt in Yasharel. Now when Yehuda saw the mischief that Alcimus and his company had done among Yasharel, even above the heathen, he went out into all the coast of Yehuda round about, and took vengeance of them that had revolted from him, so they had dared no more to go forth into the country. On the other side, when Alcimus saw that Yehuda and his company had gotten the upper hand, and knew that he was not able to abide their force, he went again to the king and said all the worst of them that he could. Then the king sent Nicanor, one of his honorable princes, a man that bore deadly hate unto Yasharel, with commandment to destroy the people. So Nicanor came to Jerusalem with a great force, and sent unto Yehuda all his brethren deceitfully with friendly words, saying, Let there be no battle between me and you. I will come with a few men that I may see you in peace. He came therefore to Yehuda, and they saluted one another peaceably. Howbeit the enemies were prepared to take away Yehuda by violence, which thing after it was known to Yehuda, to wit, that he came unto him with deceit. He was sore afraid of him, and would see his face no more. Nicanor also, when he saw that his counsel was discovered, went out to fight against Yehuda beside Kaphar Salama, where there were slain of Nicanor's side about 5,000 men, and the rest fled into the city of David. After this Nicanor went up to Mount Sion, and there came out of the sanctuary certain of the priests and certain of the elders of the people, to salute him peaceably, and to show him the ascending smoke sacrifice that was offered for the king. But he mocked them, and laughed at them, and abused them shamefully, and spoke proudly, and swore in his wrath, saying, Unless Yehuda and his host be now delivered into my hands, if I ever come again in safety, I will burn up this house. And with that he went out in a great rage. Then the priests entered in and stood before the altar in the temple, weeping and saying, You, O Yehuda, did choose this house to be called by your name, and to be a house of prayer and petition for your people. Be avenged of this man and his host, and let them fall by the sword. Remember their blasphemies, and suffer them not to continue any longer. So Nicanor went out of Jerusalem, and pitched his tents in Beit Koron, where a host of Aram met him. But Yehuda pitched in Hasdasha with 3,000 men, and there he prayed, saying, O Yahuwah, when they that were sent from the king of Ashur, blaspheming, your angel went out, and smoked 184,500 of them. Even so destroy this host before us this day, that the rest may know that he has spoken blasphemously against your sanctuary, and judge him according to his wickedness. So the 13th day of the month Adar, the host joined battle, but Nicanor's host was discomfited, and he himself was first slain in the battle. Now when Nicanor's host saw that he was slain, they cast away their weapons and fled. Then they pursued after them a day's journey, from Hadasha unto Gazam, sounding an alarm after them with their shofars. Wherefore they came forth out of all the towns of Yehuda round about, and closed them in, so that they turning back upon them that pursued them, were all slain with the sword, and not one of them was left. Afterwards they took the spoils, and the prey, and smote off Nicanor's head, and his right hand, which he stretched out so proudly, and brought them away, and hanged them up toward Jerusalem. For this cause the people rejoiced greatly, and they kept that day a day of great gladness. Moreover they ordained to keep yearly this day, being the 13th of Adar. Thus the land of Yehud was in rest a little while. Makkabiym Ri'Shon, chapter 8. Now Yehuda had heard of the Romaim, that they were mighty and valiant men, and such as they would lovingly accept all that joined themselves unto them, and make a league of amity with all that came unto them, and that they were men of great valor. It was told him also of their wars and noble acts which they had done among the Galatine, and how they had conquered them and brought them under tribute, and what they had done in the country of Spain, for the winning of the mines of the silver and gold which is there, and that by their policy and patience they had conquered all the place, though it were very far from them, and the kings also that came against them from the uttermost part of the earth, till they had discomfited them, and given them a great overthrow, so that the rest did give them tribute every year. Besides this, how they had discomfited in the battle Philip and Perseus, king of the Kittim, with others that lifted up themselves against them, and had overcome them. How also Antiochus, the great king of Asia, that came against them in battle, having 120 elephants with horsemen and chariots, and a very great army, was discomfited by them. And how they took him alive, and covenanted that he and such reigned after him should pay a great tribute and give hostages, and that which was agreed upon, and the country of India, and Madai and Ludi in the Gilead countries, which they took of him, and gave to King Eumenes. Moreover, how the Yavanim had determined to come and destroy them, and that they, having knowledge thereof, sent against them a certain captain, and fighting with them slew many of them, and carried away captives their women and their children, and spoiled them, and took possession of their lands, and pulled down their strongholds, and brought them to be their servants unto this day. It was told him besides how they destroyed and brought under their dominion all other kingdoms and isles that any time resisted them, but with their friends and such as relied upon them they kept amity, and that they had conquered kingdoms both far and nigh, so much so as all that heard of their name were afraid of them. Also that whom they would help to a kingdom, those reigned, and whom again they would, they displaced. Finally, that they were greatly exalted. Yet for all this none of them wore a crown or was clothed in purple to be magnified thereby. Moreover, how they had made for themselves a senate house, wherein 320 men sat in council daily, consulting always for the people, to the end that they might be well ordered, and that they committed their government to one man every year, who ruled over all their country, and that all were obedient to that one, and that there was neither envy nor emulation among them. In consideration of these things, Yehuda chose Eupolemus, the son of Yochanan, the son of Kotes, and Yasan, the son of Eleazar, and sent them to Rome, to make a league of amity and confederacy with them, and to entreat them that they would take the yoke from them, for they saw that the kingdom of the Yavanim did oppress Yasharel with servitude. They went therefore to Rome, which was a very great journey, and came into the senate, where they spoke and said, Yehuda Maccabee with all his brethren, and the people of the Yahudim have sent us unto you, to make a confederacy and peace with you, and that we might be registered your confederates and friends. So that matter pleased the Romaim well. And this is the copy of the Cefer which the Senate wrote back again in the tables of brass, and sent to Jerusalem, that there they might have by them a memorial of peace and confederacy. Good success be to the Romaim, and to the people of the Yahudim, by sea and by land forever. The sword also and the enemy be far from them. If there come first any war upon the Romaim, or any of their confederates throughout all their dominion, the people of the Yahudim shall help them, as the time shall be appointed with all their heart. Neither shall they give anything unto them that make war upon them, or aid them with victuals, weapon, money, or ships, as it seem good to the Romaim. But they shall keep their covenants without taking anything therefore. In the same manner also, if war come first upon the nation of the Yahudim, the Romaim shall help them with all their heart, according as the time shall be appointed them. Neither shall victuals be given to them that take part against them, or weapons, or money, or ships, or as it seem good to the Romaim, but they shall keep their covenants, and that without deceit. According to these articles did the Romaim cut a covenant with the people of the Yahudim. Howbeit, if hereafter the one party or the other shall think to meet to add or diminish anything, they may do it at their pleasures, and whatsoever they add or take away shall be ratified. And as touching the evils that Demetrius does to the Yahudim, we have written unto him, saying, Wherefore made your yoke heavy upon our friends and confederates the Yahudim? If therefore they complain any more against you, we will do them justice, and fight with you by sea and by land. Makkabiym Ri'Shon, chapter 9. Furthermore, when Demetrius heard that Nicanor and his hosts were slain in battle, he sent Bacchides and Alcimus into the land of Yehuda the second time, and with them the chief strength of his hosts, who went forth by the way that leads to Gilgal, and pitched their tents before Masaloth, which is in Arbel. And after that they won it, they slew much people. Also the first month of the 152nd year they encamped before Jerusalem, for whence they removed and went to Berea, with 20,000 footmen and 2,000 horsemen. Now Yehuda had pitched his tents in Eliah, and 3,000 chosen men with him, whose multitude of the other army till he so great were sore afraid, whereupon many conveyed themselves out of the host, so much so as abode of them no more but 800 men. When Yehuda therefore saw that his host slipped away, and that the battle pressed upon him, he was sore troubled in mind, and much distressed, for that he had no time to gather them together. Nevertheless unto them that remained he said, Let us arise and go up against our enemies, if perchance we may be able to fight with them. But they dehorted him, saying, We shall never be able. Let us now rather save our lives, and hereafter we will return with our brethren, and fight against them, for we are but few. Then Yehuda said, Far be it that I should do this thing, and flee away from them. If our time has come, let us die manfully for our brethren, and let us not stain our honor. With that the host of Bacchides removed out of their tents and stood over against them, their horsemen being divided into two troops, and their slingers and their archers going before the host, and that they marched in their forward were all mighty men. As for Bacchides, he was in the right wing. So the host drew near on the two parts, and sounded their shofars. They also of Yehuda's side, even they sounded their shofars also, so that the earth shook at the noise of the armies, and the battle continued from morning till night. Now when Yehuda perceived that Bacchides and the strength of his army were on the right side, he took with him all the hardy men, who discomfited the right wing and pursued them unto the Mount Ashdod. But when they of the left wing saw that they of the right wing were discomfited, they followed upon Yehuda and those that were with him hard at the heels from behind. Whereupon there was a sore battle, so much so as many were slain on both parts. Yehuda also was killed, and the remnant fled. When Jonathan and Shimon took Yehuda their brother, and buried him in the sepulchre of his fathers in Modin. Moreover they bewailed him, and all Yasharel made great lamentation for him, and mourned many days, saying, How is the valiant man fallen, that delivered Yasharel? As for the other things concerning Yehuda and his wars, and the noble acts which he did, and his greatness, they are not written, for they were very many. Now after the death of Yehuda, the wicked began to put forth their heads in all the coast of Yasharel, and there arose up all such as wrought iniquity. In those days also was there a very great famine, by reason whereof the country revolted and went with them. The Bacchides chose the wicked men, and made them Adonim of the country, and they made inquiry in search of Yehuda's friends, and brought them unto Bacchides, who took vengeance of them and used them despitefully. So was there a great affliction in Yasharel, the light whereof was not since the time that a prophet was not seen among them. For this cause all of Yehuda's friends came together and said unto Jonathan, Since your brother Yehuda died, we have no man like him to go forth against our enemies and Bacchides, and against them of our nation that are adversaries to us. Now therefore we have chosen you this day to be our prince and captain in his stead, that you may fight our battles. Upon this Jonathan took the governance upon him at the time, and rose up instead of his brother Yehuda. But when Bacchides got knowledge of thereof, he sought for to slay him. Then Jonathan and Shimon his brother, and all that were with him, perceiving that, fled into the wilderness of Tekoa, and pitched their tents by the water of the pool of Ashfar. Which when Bacchides understood, he came near to the Yarden with all his host upon the Shabbat. Now Jonathan had sent his brother Yochanan, the captain of the people, to pray his friends the Nabathim, that they might leave with them their carriage, which was much. But the children of Jambri came out of Madaba, and took Yochanan, and all that he had, and went their way with it. After this came word to Jonathan and Shimon his brother, that the children of Jambri made a great marriage, and were bringing the bride from Nadabatha with a great train, as being the daughter of one of the great princes of Canaan. Therefore they remembered Yochanan their brother, and went up, and hid themselves under the covert of the mountain, where they lifted up their eyes and looked, and behold, there was much ado and a great carriage, and the bridegroom came forth, and his friends and brethren, to meet them with drums and instruments of music and many weapons. Then Jonathan and they that were with him rose up against them from the place where they lay in ambush, and made a slaughter of them in such sort, as many fell down dead, and the remnant fled into the mountain, and they all took their spoils. Thus was the marriage turned into mourning, and their noise of their melody into lamentation. So when they had avenged fully the blood of their brother, they turned again into the marsh of the Yarden. Now when Bacchides heard thereof, he came on the Shabbat unto the banks of the Yarden with great power. Then Jonathan said to his company, Let us go up now and fight for our lives, for it stands not with us today as in time past. For behold, the battle is before us and behind us, and the water of the Yarden on this side and that side, the marsh likewise and wood, neither is there place for us to turn aside. Wherefore cry ye now unto heaven, that ye may be delivered from the hand of your enemies. With that they joined battle, and Jonathan stretched forth his hand to smite Bacchides, but he turned back from him. Then Jonathan and they that were with him leapt into the Yarden, and swam over to the other bank. Howbeit the others passed not over the Yarden unto them. So there was slain of Bacchides side that day about 1,000 men. After returned Bacchides to Jerusalem, and repaired the strong cities in Yehuda, the fort in Jericho, and Yemin, and Beit Horon, and Beit El, and Timnah, and Pherathoni, and Tapuach. These did strengthen with high walls, with gates, and with bars, and in them he set a garrison, that they might work malice upon Yasharel. He fortified also the city of Beit Sur, and Gazam, and the tower, and put forces in them, and provision of victuals. Besides, he took the chief men's son in the country for hostages, and put them into the tower at Jerusalem to be kept. Moreover, in the 153rd year of the 2nd month, Alcimus commanded that the wall of the inner court of the sanctuary be pulled down. He pulled down also the works of the prophets. And as he began to pull down, even at that time was Alcimus plagued, and his enterprises hindered, for his mouth was stopped, and he was taken with palsy, so that he could no more speak anything, nor give order concerning his house. So Alcimus died at the time with great torment. Now when Bacchides saw that Alcimus was dead, he returned to the king, whereupon the land of Yehuda was rest 2 years. Then all the wicked men held a council, saying, Behold, Jonathan and his company are at ease, and dwell without care. Now therefore we will bring Bacchides hither, who shall take them all in one night. So they went and consulted with him. Then removed he, and came with a great host, and sent Cefer privily to his adherents in Yehuda, that they should take Jonathan and those that were with him. Howbeit they could not, because their counsel was known unto them. Wherefore they took of the men of the country, that were the authors of that mischief, about 50 persons, and slew them. Afterward Jonathan and Shimon, and they that were with him, got them away to Bet-Betsy, which is in the wilderness, and they repaired the decays thereof, and made it strong. Which thing when Bacchides knew, he gathered together all his hosts, and sent word to them that were of Yehuda. Then went he and laid siege against Bet-Betsy, and they fought against it a long season, and made engines of war. But Jonathan left his brother Shimon in the city, and went forth himself into the country, and with a certain number went he forth. And he smote Odamara with his brethren, and the children of Phasiron in their tent. And when he began to smite them, and came up with his forces, Shimon and his company went out of the city, and burned up the engines of war, and fought against Bacchides, who was discomfited by them. And they afflicted him sore, for his counsel and travail was in vain. Wherefore he was very wroth at the wicked men that gave him counsel to come into the country, inasmuch as he slew many of them, and purposed to return to his own country. Whereof, when Jonathan had knowledge, he sent ambassadors unto him, to the end he should make peace with him, and deliver them the prisoners. Which thing he accepted, and did according to his demands, and swore unto him that he would never do harm in all the days of his life. When therefore he had restored unto him the prisoners that he had taken aforetime out of the land of Yehuda, he returned and went his way into his own land. Neither came he any more into their borders. Thus the sword ceased from Yasharel. But Jonathan dwelt in Makkabiym, and began to govern the people, and he destroyed the wicked men out of Yasharel. Makkabiym Ri'Shon, chapter 10. In the 160th year, Alexander, the son of Antiochus, surnamed Epiphanes, went up and took Akko, for the people had received him, by means whereof he reigned there. Now when King Demetrius heard thereof, he gathered together an exceeding great host, and went forth against him to fight. Moreover, Demetrius sent Cefer unto Jonathan with loving words, so as he magnified him. For said he, let us first make peace with him, before he join with Alexander against us. Else he will remember all the evils that we have done against him, and against his brethren and his people. Wherefore we gave him authority to gather together a host, and provide weapons that he might aid him in battle. He commanded also that the hostages that were in the tower should be delivered him. Then came Jonathan to Jerusalem, and read the Sepharim in the audience of all the people, and of them that were in the tower, who were sore afraid, when they heard that the king had given him authority to gather together a host. Whereupon they of the tower delivered their hostages to Jonathan, and he delivered them unto their parents. This done, Jonathan settled himself in Jerusalem, and began to build and prepare the city. And he commanded the workmen to build the walls of Mount Sion, and about with square with stones for fortification, and they did so. And he commanded the workmen to build the walls and Mount Sion, and about with the square stones for fortification, and they did so. Then the strangers that were in the fortress which Bacchides had built fled away, so much so as every man left his place, and went into his own country. Only at Beit Sur, certain of those that had forsaken the Torah and the commandments remained still, for it was their place of refuge. Now when King Alexander had heard what promises Demetrius had sent unto Jonathan, when also it was told of him of the battles and noble acts which he and his brethren had done, and of the pains that they endured, he said, shall we find such another man? Now therefore we will make him our friend and confederate. Upon this he wrote a Cefer, and sent it unto him, according to these words, saying, King Alexander to his brother Jonathan sends greeting. We have heard of you, that you are a man of great power, and meet to be our friend. Wherefore now this day we ordain you to be the high priest of your nation, and to be called the king's friend. And therewithal he sent him a purple robe and a crown of gold, and require you to take our part, and keep friendship with us. So in the 7th month of the 160th year, at the feast of Sukkot, Jonathan put on the holy robe, and gathered together forces, and provided much armor. Whereof, when Demetrius heard, he was very sorry, and said, what have we done, that Alexander has prevented us in making amity with the Yahudim to strengthen himself? I also will write unto them words of encouragement, and promise them dignities and gifts, that I may have their aid. He sent unto them therefore to this effect, King Demetrius unto the people of the Yahudim send greeting. Whereas ye have kept covenants with us, and continued in our friendship, not joining yourselves with our enemies, we have heard hereof, and are glad. Wherefore now continue ye still to be faithful to us, and we will well recompense you for the things ye do on our behalf, and will grant you many immunities, and give you rewards. And now do I free you, and for your sake I release all of the Yahudim from tributes, and from the customs of salt, and from crown taxes, and from that which appertains unto me to receive for the third part or the seed, and half of the fruit of the trees. I release it from this day forth, so that they shall not be taken of the land of Yehuda, nor of 3 governments which are added thereunto out of the country of Shomeron and Galil, from this day forth forevermore. Let Jerusalem also be holy and free, with the borders thereof both from tents and tributes. And as for the tower which is at Jerusalem, I yield up authority over it, and give the high priest, that he may set in it such men as he shall choose to keep it. Moreover, I freely set at liberty every one of the Yahudim that were carried captives out of the land of Yehuda into any part of my kingdom, and I will that of my officers remit the tributes even of their cattle. Furthermore, I will that all the feasts and Shabbats and new moons and solemn days, and the 3 days before the feast, and the 3 days after the feast shall be all of immunity and freedom for all the Yahudim in my realm. Also, no man shall have authority to meddle with or to molest any of them in any matter. I will further that there be enrolled among the king's forces about 30,000 men of the Yahudim, unto whom pay shall be given, as belongs to all king's forces. And all of them shall be placed in the king's strongholds, of whom also some shall be set over the affairs of the kingdom, which are of trust. And I will that their overseers and governors be of themselves, and that they live at their own Torah, even as the king has commanded in the land of Yehuda. And concerning the 3 governments that are added to Yehuda from the country of Shomeron, let them be joined with Yehuda, that they may be reckoned to be under one, nor bound to obey or the authority than the high priest. As for Akko, and the land pertaining thereto, I give it as a free gift to the sanctuary at Jerusalem for necessary expenses of the sanctuary. Moreover, I give every year 15,000 shekels of silver out of the king's accounts from the places appertaining, and all the overplus, which the officers paid not in as in former time, from henceforth shall be given toward the works of the temple. And besides this, the 5,000 shekels of silver, which they took from the uses of the temple out of the account year by year, even those things shall be released, because they appertain to the priests that minister. And whosoever they be that flee unto the temple at Jerusalem, or be within the liberties hereof, being indebted to the king, or for any other matter, let them be at liberty, and all that they have in my realm. For the building also and preparing of the works of the sanctuary, expenses shall be given of the king's accounts. Yea, and for the building of the walls of Jerusalem, and the fortifying thereof round about, expenses shall be given out of the king's accounts, as also for the building of the walls in Yehuda. Now when Jonathan and the people heard these words, they gave no credit unto them, nor received them, because they remembered the great evil that he had done in Yasharel, for he had afflicted them very sore. But with Alexander they were very well pleased, because he was the first that entreated of true peace with them, and they were confederate with him always. Then gathered King Alexander great forces and camped over against Demetrius. And after the 2 kings had joined battle, Demetrius' host fled. But Alexander followed after him and prevailed against them. And he continued the battle very sore until the sun went down, and that day was Demetrius slain. Afterward Alexander sent ambassadors to Ptolemy, king of Mitzrayim, with a message to this effect: For as much as I had come again to my realm, and am set in the throne of my progenitors, and have gotten the dominion and overthrown Demetrius and recovered our country. For after I had joined battle with him, both he and his host was discomfited by us, so that we sit in the throne of his kingdom. Now therefore let us make a league of amity together, and give me now your daughter to be my woman, and I will be your son-in-law, and will give both of you and her as according to your dignity. Then Ptolemy the king gave answer, saying, Happy be the day wherein you did return into the land of your fathers, and sat in the throne of their kingdom. And now will I do to you as you have written. Meet me therefore at Akko, that we may see one another, for I will marry my daughter to you according to your desire. So Ptolemy went out of Mitzrayim with his daughter Cleopatra, and they came unto Akko in the 162nd year, where King Alexander meeting him, he gave unto him his daughter Cleopatra, and celebrated her marriage at Akko with great glory, as the manner of kings is. Now when King Alexander had written unto Jonathan that he should come and meet him, who thereupon went honorably to Akko, where he met the 2 kings, and gave them and their friends silver and gold, and many presents, and found favor in their sight. At that time certain pestilent fellows of Yasharel, men of a wicked life, assembled themselves against him to accuse him, but the king would not hear them. Yea, more than that, the king commanded to take off his garments and clothe him in purple, and they did so. And he made him sit by himself, and said unto his princes, Go with him in the midst of the city, and make proclamation that no man complain against him of any matter, and that no man trouble him for any manner of cause. Now when his accusers saw that he was honored according to the proclamation, and clothed in purple, they fled away. So the king honored him, and wrote him among his chief friends, and made him a duke, and a partaker of his dominion. Afterward Jonathan returned to Jerusalem with peace and gladness. Furthermore, in the 165th year came Demetrius, son of Demetrius out of Crete, into the land of his fathers. Whereof when King Alexander heard tell, he was right sorry, and returned into Antioch. Then Demetrius made Apollonius the governor of Cleoram, his general, who gathered together a great host, and camped in Yavniel, and sent unto Jonathan the high priest, saying, You alone lift up yourself against us, and I am laughed to scorn for your sake and reproach. And why do you vaunt your power against us in the mountains? Now therefore, if you trust your own strength, come down to us into the plain field, and let us try the matter together, for with me is the power of the cities. Ask and learn who I am, and the rest that take our part, and they shall tell you that your foot is not able to flight in their own land. Wherefore now you shall not be able to abide the horsemen, and so great a power in the plain. Wherefore now you shall not be able to abide the horsemen, and so a great power in the plain, where is neither stone nor flint, nor place to flee into. So when Jonathan heard these words of Apollonius, he was moved in his mind, and choosing 10,000 men, he went out of Jerusalem, where his brother Shimon met him for to help him. And he pitched his tents against Yapho. But there Yapho shut him out of the city, because Apollonius had a garrison there. Then Jonathan laid siege unto it, whereupon the city let him in for fear, and so Jonathan won Yapho. Whereof when Apollonius heard, he took 3,000 horsemen with a great host of footmen, and went to Ashdod as one that journeyed, and therewithal drew him forth into the plain, because he had a great number of horsemen in whom he put his trust. Then Jonathan followed after him to Ashdod, where the armies joined battle. Now Apollonius had left 1,000 horsemen in ambush, and Jonathan knew that there was an ambush behind him, for they had compassed in his host, and cast spears at the people from morning till evening. But the people stood still as Jonathan had commanded them, and so the enemy's horses were tired. Then Shimon brought forth his host, and set them against the footmen, for the horsemen were spent, who were discomfited by him, and fled. The horsemen also, being scattered in the field, fled to Ashdod, and went into Beit Dagon, their idol's temple, for safety. But Jonathan set fire on Ashdod, and the cities round about it, and took their spoils. And the temple of Dagon, with them that were fled into it, he burned with fire. Thus there were burned and slain with the sword well nigh 8,000 men. And from thence Jonathan removed his host, and camped against Ashkelon, where the men of the city came forth and met him with great pomp. After this returned Jonathan and his host unto Jerusalem, having many spoils. Now when King Alexander heard these things, he honored Jonathan yet more, and sent him a buckle of gold, as the use is to be given to such as are of king's blood. He gave him also Ekron, with the borders thereof in possession.